So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to MORETalks from Thomas More University. This is a virtual discussion series sponsored by C Forward. My name is Bailey, and I'll be your moderator for today. We are joined by three incredible women. Three of them happen to be Thomas More alumnae. And I will let these three introduce themselves, but before we do that, I just wanted to remind everyone that this MORETalk is being recorded and will be made available on our website. So our chat function is also available for you to just introduce yourself and tell us more about who you are. We'd love to know who's on this panel as well. And our Q&A function is open. So please ask your questions so that our panelists can answer them accordingly. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today. So we have Katie Raverty Evans, she's from the class of 2007. We have Stephanie Wright from the class of 2002, and Neena Volk from the class of 2007. So I'd like each of you to introduce yourself. Katie, would you mind kicking things off?
Yeah, no problem at all. My name is Katie Raverty Evans, and I'm a graduate of 2007 at Thomas More University. I graduated there with a degree in communications and then a minor in business and art. Currently, I am the government affairs manager for Best Way Disposal. We are a full service waste management company that provides waste and recycling removal. I am the advocate and the lobbyist for Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. And I also represent my company on the national level when it comes to the National Waste and Recycling Association as the Board of Governors member for the state of Kentucky, and also vice president for the Women's Council, and then vice chair for the Government Affairs Task Force for the federal side of things. I married my college sweetheart, Steve, who is a 2008 graduate, and we have two children, Grace and Michael, and we live in Burlington, Kentucky. I'm also very involved within the community. I sit on a couple of community boards. One of my favorites is New Day Equine Therapy Program out in Verona, Kentucky.
Thanks, Katie. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Stephanie Wright, 2003 graduate of Thomas More. I graduated with business with a minor in microcomputer application systems. Don't ask me what to do with that. No. I'm co-owner of a brand fuel company. We are a brand and design agency in Covington, Kentucky. Work with a bunch of upstarts as well as mature companies to really help them understand who they are, who they're targeting, how they really create their brand and set it up for long-term success. I am a mother of 4 boys, wild boys that keep me on my toes all the time. Also married a college sweetheart, Hugh, who was also graduated from Thomas More. So spend our times on a lot of sidelines and within gyms, staying busy between those boys and work.
You have your hands full, that's for sure.
Wow, for sure.
And Neena?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me today and for joining. My name is Neena Volk. I graduated from Thomas More, as Bailey said, in 2007, alongside Katie Raverty. And I graduated with a major of business administrations, communications, and a minor in marketing. I currently am the founder and chief strategist of Geeky Girl Strategy, where I help teams and organizations go from idea to execution and put together plans on how to excel at scale. I have spent a good portion of my career in startups here locally in the Cincinnati area, including Dotloop, which was acquired by Zillow in 2016, and then Everything But the House. After working in the startup world for many, many years, I decided I wanted to actually take my own leap of faith and start my own business, which has become Geeky Girl Strategy. In addition to that, my husband, Billy, and I started a nonprofit called Whiskey and Wishes in 2019 that really couples our love for great bourbon and giving back to the community to create kindness throughout the region. So in 2020, our first year of Whiskey and Wishes, we actually granted $50,000 to the greater Cincinnati community to organizations focused on education and children. Alongside my husband, Billy, we live in Northern Kentucky in Alexandria, and we have 3 boys, Noah, who is 4, and twin boys, Archer and Oliver, who just turned 1 a month ago. I'm a graduate of Leadership Northern Kentucky, the best class ever, and the past chair of Covington Partners, and have served on several steering committees and board of directors throughout my career.
Well, thank you, Katie, Stephanie, and Neena, for introducing yourselves. As you can tell, I think you three have incredible experience in your industry and your careers, and so I think this is such a wonderful thing that you guys are joining us today and being our panelists and just telling us a little bit more about how you got your start and what it looks like to be female leaders in your industry. So thank you. So just to kind of kick things off, as female leaders in your industry, in your career, along other people in your careers, what has been the most significant barrier in your career that you've had to overcome or are still learning to overcome? Katie, do you want to kick that one off?
Yeah, definitely. So being a female leader within our waste and recycling industry, there's a lot of barriers, but I think one of the key ones that I have overcome significantly is developing a sense of purpose and internalizing the leadership identity. That's something that comes with time and confidence. But once you have learned that to overcome that barrier and to take purposeful, actionable steps confidently, I feel like you're pursuing goals that align with what you want to do and what your company wants to do. But over time, knowing what you want to do, that sense of purpose and what drives your leadership goals, I do still have some trouble with overcoming the imposter syndrome, which is a pattern of behavior in which individuals doubt their ability and have this sense of fear sometimes. So, am I making the right decision? Am I saying the right stuff? Am I making the right comments? Am I moving the right way or calling the right meetings? Those are some of the things that I'm still working on to overcome. But if I take a deep breath and realize where I'm at and my purpose and what am I doing and is it meaningful, I tend to overcome it step by step.
Yeah. I love what she said there. And I think mine's a little bit of a build on top of that too. I think, the ability to say yes and the ability to say no, right, on the right things. I love what you were saying, Katie. I would just add to it to say, you don't have to be great at everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think knowing what your strengths are, and again, there's going to be things that are weaknesses, and you can't always change those things in a person, right? There are things that you should be mindful of and considerate of, but take your strengths and leverage them and go full force. So do what you're good at and, drive that forward, because taking and channeling those strengths towards something very purposeful, exactly what Katie was saying, I think is really can create something amazing. And you trust your abilities, right? So again, be mindful of your weaknesses, but don't let them, don't make yourself a perfectionist, right? You don't have to be great at everything.
I think that last part about being a perfectionist, I think that's something I'm continuing to work on and learn, especially just trying to balance everything that life throws at you. I think another thing I would add that was really significant in my career is, and we're kind of jumping right into the being a female leader. I spent, as I mentioned, I spent a great deal of time in the tech industry, which is very male dominated. And so there were times that I found myself in a room full of all men and I was the only female. And Katie, to your point, sometimes I would get those calls, hey, my kid's sick, and not feeling like I wanted to crawl under the table when those moments happened. Also having the confidence to trust my own voice in those situations. And, I worked the biggest barrier, I would say, one of those places that I worked, I actually was the first female to ever go on maternity leave. They didn't have maternity leave. And so paving the way and the road for what that would mean for future females that entered into that organization was huge for me. I really wanted to make sure that I was helping the organization grow and develop a program that could support women that would be following my path. So that was such a huge learning experience for me personally.
Talk about barrier, not to have a maternity leave plan, and I mean, just the challenges that you had to overcome there in itself. I think, put aside the career, you had to really implement strategies for the company in itself. So that's incredible. I think you all three said things too, alluding to, having your voice, being your own advocate, stepping up to the plate and trusting your gut. And we hear the term women supporting women. What does that mean to you? And is that important in business, that camaraderie spirit of women supporting other women? Stephanie, do you want to take it, or Neena, whoever?
I can kick us off. I think it's so important. Look, together, a woman alone is very powerful, but collectively we can have some major impact. And I think by raising each other up and channeling the power of all of us together, that's really how we change the equation that we're in right now. And we have fun while we're doing it, right? I've built an amazing network of women who I've been able to take experiences or challenges that I'm seeing and share that with them and hear what their experiences have been and how they maybe have overcome the same challenges that I'm facing. So I think that ultimately, when it's up to all of us to work together to overcome some of these hurdles we as women might be facing. And at the end of the day, we're better off when we're working together and we're lifting each other up. And it's all about showing each other genuine supports and extending genuine support to one another.
Yeah. And to build on what Neena said, I'm working in a male-dominated industry myself. I find myself many times at a table filled with 60 men who all have voting privileges, with 7 women that sit at the table, but only 2 have voting privileges, and I'm one of the voting privileges. And to see women accomplish amazing things, because we all know women can get things done. We are very task driven. We're very passionately driven to get things accomplished. We know how to set goals and how to create that path. For my industry, supporting women is, first of all, let them know that they do have a place at this table, and how do we get to this table, and how can I help them get to the table, and also letting them know that technology is now moving forward, where there's a possibility where we can have women drivers, women dispatchers, women who can start working the roads, where before it was always a physical, mental, rough, tough job, where now my company is making the investment to make sure we can support women in these roles that never used to be for women before. So
absolutely. Katie, you touched on something too, was like, we're task oriented, right? So I think women are, again, they have tasks for to-do listers, right? We like to check the boxes and keep moving on. I think, again, something that helps us support each other is to go beyond the transaction, right? Go beyond the functional part of that and listen, right? So when we listen to each other and we talk to each other, we lift each other up because we learn and we have with each other. And so I think that's just critical, is to, to ask people, how are you doing? Like, great job. Like, how often you go through and you're like, I did this, I did this, I did this. And it's like, yeah, great. But when is the last time you told somebody, man, that was awesome, that was amazing, right? I think support, comes in so many emotional ways when we can just, a simple thank you, or man, you crushed it today, or wow, I see you working hard trying to juggle that, but you're doing amazing, right? It's those things that are the feel good moments that I think really, again, drive women to not only keep doing what they're doing, but only do better, right? You motivate them in ways that really go beyond, their to-do list, and just fuel that passion even further.
Something I love that. My coach in college, I played college lacrosse, and my coach said, celebrate the little wins. We have to celebrate the little wins, a little play here and there, but it's important to celebrate those little wins along the way. And I think that's so important, supporting women in general. And, I read this quote the other day, and it said, a more diverse workforce will naturally lead to a more inclusive culture. So is it important to have diversity and inclusion efforts in an organization? And why is it important to have that? Stephanie, do you want to kick us off with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I think if you have similar minded people, you're going to have consistent results. I think, the more dissimilar backgrounds and ethnicities and gender perspectives, I think, again, just greater diversity, it opens your eyes to things that maybe weren't exposed to. So I think I know at our company, we're doing some, training just to make sure, again, from a diversity, equity, and inclusion standpoint, it's really just making sure that we're aware of, things that we might not even be aware of, so that we're making conscious decisions in a meaningful way versus having an unconscious bias. So again, definitely advocate for, if you've never been there and you've never had that experience, it's hard to be able to speak about it. So women, I think, especially in those leadership roles, are light, right? At first it was a glass ceiling, and then, there's an equity gap, in leadership levels. And there's an opportunity to really start to change that and fuel women so that we can get, again, multiple perspectives, whether it's gender or, again, cultural. I think, again, diversity across the board is just super important to have an open mind and honestly make more informed decisions. Some businesses have awesome articles about more diverse choices actually increase the bottom line exponentially. And so I think there's just an interesting correlation to business results naturally come from more inclusive decision making at leadership levels.
Stephanie, to build on your point, I think, at this point, I think we all believe that we all know there's a positive impact when there's diversity in play and programs in play. But I think what really separates some of those organizations that are doing it really well is going beyond, hey, we've implemented this program, to, how are these organizations really living and breathing it in their culture every day? When you create, I think, this culture of diversity, we not only see these amazing perspectives being brought to the table, but you also start to see people feeling a sense of belonging to that organization, which, to your bottom line point, that is where we start to see those results. When people belong and feel a connection to something, they want to do great things to repay that company back. And so I think cultures and organizations that do this really well, we start to see just amazing results from those individuals. And we also, they start to act as brand ambassadors for our company, which, is what we are hoping for. That's just a win for everyone around the table.
Yeah, Neena, I love what you're poking at. It's not just like implementing something and saying an organization does it, but it means believing in it, believing
Right.
that there's actually a positive impact because of, again, wanting to incorporate that into the culture.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was nodding. I mute myself because sometimes I answer and I'm a listener who talks out loud and will speak. So so transitioning to this past year, I know this past year has been such a learning experience, is something that I've found true this year. And I saw that Deloitte conducted a survey of nearly 400 women across 9 different countries to offer a better understanding of how women are affected and were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And the statistics are very alarming. And one statistic that stuck out to me was nearly 70% of women who have experienced these disruptions are concerned their career growth may be limited as a result. So 70% of those 400 women. So I'm curious, what has your experience been like this past year? I know that's a heavy question. And how has it affected your work life?
Well, I'll go first. Last year, I ended up pregnant during COVID. And to add on a pregnancy during such a stressful period, especially when your job is to monitor, to advocate, to regulate the new executive orders that are coming down, to make sure HR knows what's going on, to make sure that we have enough PPE, they get the funding for the PPE, was stressful. It was hard. It was exhausting. But with the support of my company and understanding what my needs were, they were able to be very flexible for me when I needed to go or when I needed to stay. But with that said, I have noticed a tremendous impact to women in our industry, especially when it comes to a certain level of women who had to take a step back, who had to go back home to teach, to have to take care of their children or take care of their mothers and fathers who are older. I give the example on my board, my women's council board, I lost 3 key players last year because of the pandemic, where if my board of governors, where there's 60 members of us, not one was gone because of it. And that was eye-opening for me and made me realize that how can I be a woman who supports women in the industry? If, what can I do to help them or coach them on taking a step back, but then getting back in? Is there a way that can help them re-enter and connect those contacts or get them into a different industry if need be, to find another path?
Stephanie, Neena?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. About a year ago, I wrote an article that I put on LinkedIn that, COVID we accelerated and we slowed down all at the same time, right? And so it was just an interesting dichotomy of, 2 sort of opposing forces sort of hitting. And I think in a moment where women feel like they're juggling all these other things, then all of a sudden, home became the center of not only, where you were, but it was, you're now teaching, you're now working, you're now eating, you're now like, you're the chef for every meal. It just became the center of all these pieces. And so it was, for me personally, it was such an interesting balance of, there's so many great things and so many insane things like all colliding at the same time. I think, we were blessed with a strong, network of family and people that, helped us get through it. And, we had to just say, hey, we're going to do the best that we can. And just keeping that mentality of, we, again, we couldn't be a perfectionist. We're going to do the best that we can. And we're going to push through this. But I honestly think, the biggest lesson I learned in that is it's okay to be vulnerable, right? So like COVID created a moment where we had to be vulnerable and say, hey, I can't do this because I have to do this. Or, it's like the power of no became so important. Or, hey, we had to pivot and try completely new things personally, professionally. Our company is one that's you're in a creative environment, you're in an open workspace, we're working together, sharing ideas all the time. We had to go virtual and we had to figure that out. And so just the ability, and I talked to our team a lot about vulnerability, is just, it's okay. Like things are going to work and things aren't going to work, but let's learn from those and get better. And so that ability to be vulnerable, I think really accelerated. And I think there's going to be a lot of really positive things, even though the short term may seem a little, troublesome or that might not be right. Well, I think that the outside of keep a strong perspective for anybody who's struggling in these moments, that there's going to be positive things that come out of it, and use your network. Because I think there's a lot of opportunities to help and especially fuel women.
I think, Stephanie, you could not be more right with that vulnerable word. Just like Katie, I brought home twins in March, a week before the world shut down. And it was, I have shared this even with these ladies previously. Our motto this past year and continuing this year a bit is surviving, not thriving, because that is kind of what our life has been. Just trying to pivot and do the best we can. And, one thing I think that's really special that has come out of this craziness is I think that it's become a bit more normalized that we're all just people at the end of the day. And, I've had moments where having the small twins that were just turned a year, they would be crying and I would have to grab one of them and be on a call with them. I think that may have even happened in one of the conversations I had with Bailey. And, I've got 2 babies that I'm holding as I'm presenting something. And I have finally had a male leader that is a client of mine say to me, hey, don't apologize. Like, that's your priority. And we're all in the same boat. Just because my kids are 15 doesn't mean that I don't have moments where they come to me with things. So like, don't apologize for being human, and you don't need to be the professional all of the time. Like, that's your life and it's okay. And so I think that was just such an eye-opening moment for me and made me really appreciate that, men and women are kind of going through that this year. And we've all just learned to accept that about each other and celebrate it.
I could not agree more. I think I too also welcomed a baby during this craziness, and You're so right. And I think you three touched on something that, this year there have been so many blessings that have oddly come out of it. Family time is a big one. I think that's so underestimated and so undervalued is family time and just being together. And that was something that I think I really was grateful for, that, my husband works from home. And so, he didn't really have a paternity leave, right? He had to be home. And so there were some things that came out of it that ended up being a little blessings along the way. So I know exactly what you all three were talking about. That kind of leads into the next question of work-life balance. I think that term is used heavily, and I think my question is, does that exist? Does balance exist? And if you have found that balance, how did you find it? And how do you maintain that? And I'm curious your thoughts about that. Stephanie, do you want to start that one off?
Yeah, I think, again, there's no magic recipe, right? It's different for everyone, but I think balance is what you make of it, right? So I always remind myself, my job is not to cure cancer, right? I have a wonderful profession. I love what I do, a wonderful team. But again, at the end of the day, it's like having that right perspective to say, hey, there's things in my life that matter, and you have to be able to prioritize those things. And so, again, I always think there's work, there's family, there's yourself, the mental health crisis that everybody sort of, has been enduring this past year. And then, oh, by the way, throw in some social, philanthropic efforts, into things that you're trying to be mindful of. And yeah, it's tough. Like everybody at some point in time, you feel like you're letting somebody down. I think letting go of that guilt and knowing that you're doing the best that you can, and just going into a right perspective, saying, hey, I'm going to make this the right balance. I think Katie tapped on it earlier on. It's like, what's your purpose? What's your passion? I think COVID has allowed people to sit back and realize their values, what's most important to them. Old Dominion has that article, right? Life is short, make it sweet. So it's all about choices, and it's about, the decisions that you make, and just making sure that, again, it's create the balance that's right for you.
I want to say something where my work-life balance ideas were completely thrown out the window once the pandemic hit. Like what my life was before and how I balance things is completely different now, especially now that I have invited work into my home, where I used to have this barrier for me. I have an office I can go to. I have a way to have this fence up. I can't anymore. So now for me, it's work is intertwined with my life, but I need to shut off. So I turn off my phone for a little bit, or I put it in the room, and, people will be texting me like, hey, what's going on? I make a conscious effort not to respond, because once you start opening those doors, people are going to come in. And so at least for the people at my office, no, they will not get a response from me after a certain period of time, because I'm a mom. I can't do it. You'll get a response from me from 5:30 in the morning, but once the babies are up, they're gone. I used to be able to make meetings on my calendar where I could go to the gym or go take care of myself before my evening meetings, but now I can't anymore. So trying to interweave that again during my day is hard, because I feel guilty, a little mom guilt, because I took an extra half an hour, 45 minutes to get to work because of a baby being colicky or throwing up. And so I'm now trying to understand and redefine what my work-life balance looks like, but life before COVID is out the window for me personally, what that was.
Yeah, I will. I'll be very honest and transparent here and say that I suck at work-life balance. It's definitely not my strength. I still try really, really hard. And, we have I strive for a realistic and flexible schedule, but I'm not always great at that, at implementing it. And, I see some familiar names on the attendee list, so they can probably attest to that about me too. You get emails from me at all hours of the night. Usually once I get the kids to sleep, I log back on and work pretty late. Or pretty early. I've tried really hard owning my own business. I think I have this additional layer of responsibility too. I don't have any employees that work for me. So everything is a reflection of me. Everything is a reflection of my organization and my brand. And so I try to be available as much as I can. I've tried to set boundaries for myself early on when I started my company, that I wanted Fridays to be my day that I spend with my boys. And, I've had a couple comments along the way, like, oh, that must be nice to have Fridays off. And I just, bite my tongue during those, when people make those comments. But I think, yeah, it is nice, but that also requires me to make sacrifices. I do stay up till 2 a.m. some mornings to catch up. So that way I can take that Friday and just be solely focused on my 3 boys. So it's hard. I am open to any ideas or feedback from anyone who has successfully managed the work-life balance, because I have not. I will say though, I have found to work with several really amazing clients as I've started my organization, who I've shared openly, hey, Fridays is my day with my kids, and they support it. And those are the people that I want to work with, that get it and that understand, that's my priority and my value at the end of the day. And so they're out there. You've just got to find the right people that you want to work for.
You're talking about boundaries. Like, it's not so much work-life balance for me, it's my boundaries.
Right.
Like, what's okay and what's not, and what the expectation is set up front of my response, because work-life balance is so different for everybody, but it's how do we manage those communication and how people what they expect from us.
Right.
And I think scheduling time is okay, right? I mean, it's your schedule. And that's why I think, balance is what you make of it. When you're nursing a baby, you put that time on the calendar. When you're, you need to go to the gym in the morning, you put that time on the calendar. Like, it's okay. It's okay. And I think what's interesting is, Neena, we were in the same camp of, as a sole proprietor, and then you start to, build your company, and you have people working for you, and they're watching your every move, right? So they're watching. And so when you are doing all that stuff, sometimes they expect themselves to have to be modeling that, and that's not healthy for them. And so, I think it's interesting that those boundaries are really important. I remember I had managers, tell me before I had kids, hey, I'm working at 2 a.m. to catch up and to do all these things, but I'll put all my emails in the draft and I'll send them at 8 a.m. Right. Just like, just to help and to create sort of, again, you have to do it in a way that works for you, but also, reduces pressure for others around you as well.
Yeah, the scheduling emails is like the best function Gmail ever came out with. So I'm like, at least I don't look crazy. I can send this at 8:15 instead of 2:30.
Yes. And we've done things at our company. We say we have D&D Fridays, do not disturb Fridays. And so again, it's a day, it's a head down day where we try our best to not schedule meetings. We try our best to allow people to work wherever they need to work that day. And again, it's like, it's almost your permission to like go into the weekend, as you see fit, and to really feel like you've got everything done that you need, because it's hard when you're trying to get stuff done, and then attend a meeting, get stuff done, attend a meeting, you're on, you're off, you're on, you're off. And so that's with any industry, if there's a moment where you can just stay head down and really stay focused, you find yourself hyper productive. And so, I think creating those structures for ourselves and for our companies that help us, manage what we have on our plate is critical.
I love that idea, and that your company does that. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone in the attendees just wrote down D&D Fridays. That's brilliant. And I think if you can make that an option for your employees, for your company, for even your family, I hear of some families, no screen time on Fridays or whatever that might be, or no screen time on Sundays, and making that balance, if you will, making those boundaries present and obvious and a part of your routine is I think how you might be able to get to that point. I think, Stephanie, you said you had someone, a previous boss, along the way who mentioned the 2 a.m. and I won't send until 8 a.m. Did you guys ever have a mentor, or were you mentored along the way? And did anyone boost you in the right direction or give you any tips and tricks to kind of get you moving in the right direction?
Absolutely. I mean, I would say, it's hard to, single out, a particular person. I, worked with a lot of very talented people. And I would say it's interesting that were more experienced with me. I learned a lot from people who worked with me, you know, or younger on my teams that I even look at our own company now and they bring so much value, but just again, diverse experiences in so many different ways. And the world continues to change. And I think we just have to be open-minded to those different things. I think clients are great mentors, right? So I think anybody can be a mentor. You have to be vulnerable to ask for feedback. I think that's the biggest thing is, you know, don't wait for somebody just to give it to you, because it might not be the feedback you want, but hey, you know, as you're, you know, doing a job or, you know, working with somebody, as you just just got a new job, or you've employed someone in your company, talk to them, like ask them, hey, how are things going? What do you love? What keeps you up at night? Right? That's like my favorite question to ask anybody. What keeps you up at night? Because you're going to start to learn the things that are like, they really love about you, and in a, you know, approachable way, things that are like on their mind. And those are things that you can really start to address. But again, I think that can come from people above you, people underneath you, people that, you know, a peer level, etc. Always absorb.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, for me, I have a couple of really strong mentors, some that are not in the industry that I am in. They're my previous industry, which was marketing and branding. I still keep in touch with and who are cheerleaders for me. But then I also have a couple of rock star mentors who, one works for my company, but the other ones work for competitors who have taken me underneath their wings. One I refer to as my mama in waste. She works for waste management, but you know, I'll talk to my one mentor about a meeting and what to pack, but then I will call her up and be like, what should I wear? This is what I'm doing with the kids. My babysitter, like she's my mama who helps me get through work, but also how to manage my life in this industry. And Stephanie's right. Your mentor and mentees, it's not about age. It's about that connection. And if you trust them, if that's somebody who has your best interest in heart and want to see you succeed, versus someone who's just giving you lip service to give you lip service. Because I have run into both scenarios in this industry and knowing which ones to believe and which ones not. I will say I am not where I am today without a mentor who has given me hope, because hope is not a strategy, but it's something that it's instilled within you. And Terry Guerin, who works for us, he really took me underneath his wing, showed me the ropes, and ultimately just gave me the confidence. He told me, kid, I didn't teach you anything. You had it in you from the beginning. It was just letting you know you had it. Has really opened my eyes to what I can accomplish and what I will accomplish in the future.
I would say I owe a great deal to several mentors throughout my career as well. I started at Citi when I was 21 years old and right out of college. And Crystal Gibson was who brought me on to her team at that time, and just giving me the chance and the opportunity because she saw something in me was really meaningful. But as I continued to grow in my career, you know, the question about women supporting women, I think there are two individuals who have really embodied and shown me what that means. And that's Dr. Angie Taylor and Stacy Stratman. I met those two individuals through Covington Partners, and my goodness, like my life has forever been changed by them being a part of it. I can go to either of them with any idea I have or just anything and get advice that I know is going to be solid and help strengthen me as an individual and as a professional. And then my final person who has really, really been significant in my career personally, when I went to work for Everything But the House, I started in marketing there. And we brought on board a chief marketing officer by the name of Adam Weber. And Adam was one of the very first people to work at Dollar Shave Club. He was the chief marketing officer at Dollar Shave Club. I mean, just extremely and incredibly talented individual. And the opportunity to work for him was honestly like a marketer's dream come true. And so he saw something in my skill set that I didn't see, and he pushed me to expand my career in the direction of project and program management. And honestly, I didn't even really know what that meant at the time. And he, saw something in me, like I said, that I didn't see in myself. And I don't think that I would be where I am today. I wouldn't have had the experience that he had given me. I would not feel confident enough to have started my own business or have the skills that I'm using today if it weren't for him. So, I've done my best, I feel like, to try to reach out and mentor individuals as well along the way, because I've had some amazing and incredible interactions with individuals throughout my career. And I want to make sure that I'm doing that in return.